Hi everyone, and welcome to the bench. Well, today I'm going to tie you up the green machine. Now the green machine is a Chironomid pattern, but what sets this fly apart are two things. The super white bead I'm going to use for the thorax, and for the gills I'm also going to use some tan ostrich herl. Make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. For the hook we're going to use a size 12 scud pupa. We'll use some 8/0 green thread to tie with, some olive Midge flex for the body, some small mylar tinsel for the rib, some brown pheasant tail for the wing case, tan ostrich herl for the gills, and a small super white bead for the thorax. To start the fly off, we're going to take some green thread and wrap it onto our hook. And the unique thing about this fly is we're actually going to tie it backwards, and I'll explain as we go. So keep your thread near the eyelet. Take a few strands, probably about 8 or 10 strands of your pheasant tail, and we're going to tie it in right near the eyelet. And don't make it too bulky because we're going to slide a white bead on there in a minute. And just tie that in. What I've done now is take the hook out of the vise, and I'm going to take a super white bead. I'm going to use, there's a big end, a fat end on the super white bead and a real small end. I'm going to put the fat end in first onto the hook and just slide it forward and then put the hook back into the vise. What we have now is we have our pheasant tail tied in off the front of the hook, and we put our white bead onto the hook. Now leave the white bead down at the hook shank. And what I'm going to do is take some tan ostrich herl. Now this is a very important ingredient. You don't want white, you want to make sure you get the tan, because this is the color that's really ideal. Take one strand, and we're going to tie it in right near the eyelet of the hook. This step is very important. You now have your tan ostrich herl on the front. You want to wrap it forward near the eyelet and give it a few good wraps, because what we're going to do is pull that bead up close to this after. So take about 5 or 6 good wraps and then tie it off. The herl's tied in. Now I've got my white bead. I'm going to move it forward and move it up just onto the ostrich herl. Don't try to cover it, just move it up to it. And then wrap in behind the white bead with the thread. Now that the thread is behind the white bead, I'm going to take some olive Midge flex, and we're going to just tie this onto the hook. And once you get it on, once you got it binding to the hook, pull it so it stays nice and thin, and wrap your thread right down to the hook bend. And you want to go right down, about right across and even with the hook bend. Take some mylar tinsel, some of our small mylar tinsel, and we're going to tie it in, and we'll use this for the rib a little bit later. And again, don't build up too much thread on the body. We want to keep this body fairly thin. And now what we're going to do is bring our thread up behind the bead in preparation of tying in the body. We'll now take our olive Midge flex and pull it nice and tight when you wrap it in. Don't leave it too loose. Keep it nice and tight at the very back of the hook. And as you progress forward, just slacken off a bit. Just loosen up so it makes it a little fatter body as we progress forward towards the eyelet or the bead. And tie off. Take the mylar tinsel, the silver mylar tinsel we had sitting at the back, and we'll take about 5 or 6 wraps up the body just to segment the fly. And tie off near the eyelet. The last step in the fly is to actually take the wing case material, which is the pheasant tail we tied in earlier, bring it forward and wrap it over the gills and the white bead, and then tie off behind the bead. And we'll give it a quick whip finish just to finish it off. And there you have it, the finished green machine. Again, what sets this fly apart is that super white bead we use for the thorax and the tan ostrich herl for the gills. It really turns this fly into a killer pattern.